Greetings, fellow scholars of the livestream. I'm Kutakuma from the Cosmo Observatory, and today we are continuing the analysis of all new elements pertaining to Cloud and Sephiroth in the Final Fantasy VII Remake first installment. We highly recommend that you watch all the previous parts visible on screen before continuing, just so you can receive the full context. You can find the continuously growing playlist in the info card up there. Still here? Fantastic! Strap in and enjoy the next segment of our journey. Caution, spoilers ahead. Shortly after arriving in the Sector 7 Undercity, we make our way to the plaza below the support pillar and meet the remake equivalent of the guy calling it his special place in the original. Here, he laments about the avalanche posters which pop up faster than he can tear them down. He's very pro-technology and marvels at Midgar's steelwork. As Cloud looks up, something different happens. The original game merely pans the camera up along the pillar, but here, Cloud receives his very first vision of a future event. Fiery steel debris comes crashing down. Since it's his first, he thinks it's real and tries to shield his head until he realizes that it's not. This is also the only vision of a future event that happens in this game. All other visions show events from the original timeline occurring after the Midgar arc. Anyway, in Chapter 12, we see a very similar scene happening after the video call with song finishes. Cloud looks up, sees the explosion, and watches steel debris crash down in front of his feet. Before we continue, I need to mention one thing that Viz forgot in the analysis about the Whispers. It's possible that this is another instance of Whispers taking away memories. Cloud doesn't react in any way after they leave, and mentions this scene never again. Plus, the other resident looks at the poster board again, seemingly oblivious to what just happened. Of course, Cloud might just ignore this strange occurrence as he does in other instances, and the other resident returns to his own woes after calling Cloud a Mako junkie, not paying any further mind. A bit later, Cloud goes to sleep in his new apartment, courtesy of Tifa and Marl, the landlady. In the middle of the night, he suddenly wakes up from weird grunting and moaning noises in the room beside him where Mako lives. Curious about the situation, he goes to investigate.
Guess it's time for introductions.
The background music playing in this segment, Noises in the Night, is a rendition of Trail of Blood, which mainly plays during scenes connected to Genova, and thus beautifully foreshadows the next encounter. As soon as Cloud enters the room, a green glitch effect happens again, and makes Cloud see Sephiroth instead of Mako getting up and walking towards him. Is Sephiroth invading Cloud's mind yet again? Not this time. Sephiroth doesn't say anything and acts more like a puppet than a human being. Naturally, Cloud draws a sword and tries to slay Sephiroth like he did in Chapter 2. Fortunately, the doorframe keeps him from going through with it, which leads to one of the most comical scenes in the game. First, the bad door texture, then the doorframe. Poor Cloud. Outside, Tifa enters the scene and prevents Cloud from killing poor Mako. This is the first near kill by Cloud new to Remake. Keep this point in mind. With Cloud being distracted by telling Tifa to get inside, fake Sephiroth manages to grab Cloud's ankle, which triggers yet another green glitch. This time, it's another vision of the future. We see a windy and unwelcoming area in the Whirlwind Maze, complete with multiple jagged rocky spikes protruding from the ground, a sight we're all too familiar with. Several people in black cloaks are slowly lurching toward the center of the northern crater, one of them muttering, "Reunion," just as we see in the original game. After the vision ends, we finally see how Mako really looks like. He's one of those black-cloaked figures and bears the number 49, a number much greater than their counterparts in the original game, where the highest number is a mere 12. However, There is a number higher in the Final Fantasy VII canon. The Final Fantasy VII Remake World Preview book contains an original story called Picturing the Past, which is told from a security officer's point of view searching for someone important to him, and involves little Aerith's painting from her time in the Shinra building. In this story, we learn that many other black-cloaked people exist in Midgar, with some of them meeting up in the train graveyard to stare towards Shinra building where Jenova resides. One of them, a young woman named Lilisa, bears the tattoo number 24. She and Marco are therefore only two of the many others who have fallen victim to Hojo's reunion experiments. Anyway, Marco's number is most likely an Easter egg. Square root of 49 equals 7. Tifa explains to Cloud that Marco's got a few problems, but isn't a bad guy. That's a very generous way of describing someone with a severe case of Mako poisoning and too many Jenova cells. Very similar to Cloud, before Tifa found him at the Sector 7 Undercity train station and thus provided the last pieces for Cloud's psyche to reform itself. Remember the resident at the Pillar Plaza calling Cloud a Mako junkie? In German, he asked Cloud whether he had Mako poisoning. In Japanese, the word used by this resident can be translated to either poisoning or addiction, so both German and English are correct. However, poisoning fits better in this case. The guy most likely also knows about Marco and deems Cloud's weird behavior to be similar. If only he knew. Another interesting observation is Tifa's role in this scene. Both the remake's depiction and the original scenario the Vision refers to show Tifa barging into the scene. She prevents Cloud from harming Marco in the remake and forces herself into the active party in the original game, if she's not in it yet. Coincidence or a deliberate and beautiful parallel? Now, what does this encounter mean? Cloud and Marco both have Jenova cells in them. It's likely that the proximity of two mentally weak people injected with Jenova cells creates a connection based on their reunion instinct, which is why Marco wakes up, starts making noises, and thus wakes up Cloud, who then goes to investigate. Primed by earlier Sephiroth encounters which rekindled Cloud's hatred for him, plus the interaction between Jenova cell carriers, seeing Marco probably makes Cloud see Sephiroth instead. Also, Jenova's head currently resides with the actual Sephiroth in the Northern Crater, and is mostly controlled by him, which is why any visualization in relation to Jenova cells results in an image of Sephiroth. It's also a nice foreshadowing of Marco eventually appearing as Sephiroth in the Shinra building. Cloud receives the specific vision of the reunion's endpoint here because it's Marco who's touching Cloud, a black-robed S-Cells experiment triggering this appropriate scene. It's also possible that their encounter contributes to Marco starting his reunion pilgrimage. However, we don't know that he leaves the slums until we see him and number 2 in the Shinra building. And, according to Hojo, the people in black robes all went on a journey to the Northern Crater instead of Jenova's body in the Shinra building as he initially thought, but more on that later. When Cloud and Tifa return to Biggs and Wedge after clearing out Scrapyard Boulevard, Biggs wants to know how Cloud's sword is doing after the upgrade. Then, this happens.
Glad to hear it. Seems like the perfect fit for you.
Yeah. We've been through a lot.
Upon accessing his made-up memories as a soldier first class, Cloud's real self, buried deep within, briefly pierces through the veil, but gets instantly pushed down again to retain the facade, resulting in this green memory glitch. The truth is that Zack has been through a lot with this sword, but remembering Zack is not an option, because the alternative would be a breakdown of Cloud's mind and sanity. This can happen. The following segment isn't about Cloud's memories, rather about his behavior, which doesn't coincide with his original counterpart. After they rescue Johnny from Shinra's custody, Cloud is about to finish Johnny off because he knows too much and has a hard time keeping secrets. He's a talker, a loose end, so to speak. Naturally, Tifa prevents Cloud from doing so and takes on the responsibility for Johnny's loose lips. She doesn't even want Cloud to finish off the Shinra guards. No more killing. She's experienced enough of that in the past. Cloud's aloof and uncaring behavior is scaring the crap out of Tifa. Something in Cloud's eyes changed, and it's not just the Mako glow. This whole Johnny side event wasn't in the original game, but also doesn't really break canon. However, it's a great way of showing the corruption within Cloud. Sephiroth's meddling and manipulation inflamed Cloud's hatred, which leads to a waning compassion and results in Cloud's willingness to kill off innocent people. First Marco, then Johnny, and another one in Chapter 8. For now, Cloud has too little positive influence to offset the hatred. More on that when we get to Chapter 8. Chapter 4 contains a few more interesting memories and encounters. While Biggs, Wedge, and Cloud prepare for their diversion, Cloud remembers the promise he made to Tifa shortly before he left Nibelheim to join Shinra in order to become a soldier. This happened 7 years ago. In the original game, this flashback took place right after Avalanche's debriefing in the hideout, with Tifa initiating the conversation about the promise, using it to guilt Cloud into staying to fight with them. In Remake, Cloud never gets to visit the hideout. After Barrett's outburst, Tifa leads Cloud to his new apartment. The next day, Avalanche decides to not employ Cloud anymore, which negates the immediate need for Tifa to try and convince Cloud to stay, as he won't be a part of the next mission anyway. Then, Chapter 4 comes along and shows Cloud remembering their promise on his own, seemingly out of the blue. While the slow and many-bladed fan does look a bit like the wind wheel on Nibelheim's water tower, it feels like the writers needed to come up with something to still make Cloud remember their promise. In Viz's opinion, this flashback should have happened right in Cloud's apartment, when they talk about the promise anyway, which would make his reply to Tifa more natural and immediate. Their side mission to the plate already focuses on Jesse, Roche, and Avalanche HQ, so including this important flashback there feels completely out of place thematically. Now, the most important thing about this flashback for this analysis is the nature of this memory. Contrary to previous memories and illusions, this one lacks glitch effects and headaches, and can therefore be considered a normal recollection of his past. No vision, no Sephiroth intrusion, no suppression, and no Genova cells. The camera even zooms out the same way as it did after Cloud remembers looking at his burning home, calling out to his mother during his first encounter with Sephiroth in Chapter 2. Towards the end of Chapter 4, the Whispers make their first offensive move. This is where we finally reveal what's going on here after teasing you in the analysis about the Whispers. In case you haven't watched it, please do so now or afterwards. You won't be disappointed. While Cloud is asleep, two Whispers emerge from the floor, and one of them puts Cloud into a deep slumber.
Sleep and dream the sweetest dreams.
Who is talking here? Whispers never speak. Ever. The speaker is even censored with question marks. However, keen-eared players might notice that it's none other than Sephiroth speaking here.
Run, Cloud. Run away. You have to leave. You have to live. Sleep and dream the sweetest dreams.
This has huge implications. First, there's no glitch effect happening, so it's neither Sephiroth intruding Cloud's mind, nor a vision of the future, nor a forbidden memory that needs to be repressed. Second, Cloud is also not remembering a past memory. So what happens here? The only answer is that Sephiroth managed to take over some of the Whispers and uses them to manipulate Cloud this way. But why does he not invade his mind again like before? It seems that the encounter with Aerith severed that bond, and Sephiroth needs to wait for Cloud to experience another flashback connected to him. By using Whispers, Sephiroth can make Cloud fall into a deep slumber, and thus ensure he sleeps in. In Chapter 3, Cloud has been established as a light sleeper, as shown by waking up from Marco's noises. This is confirmed by him saying this out loud during his heart-to-heart with Tifa in her resolution scene.
I'm a light sleeper. It's a soldier thing.
But why does Sephiroth need Cloud to sleep in? Seconds after Cloud wakes up, Tifa barges in and urges him to follow her outside, where countless whispers are flying around everywhere. According to her, those things appeared when they were about to embark on their next bombing mission, without Cloud, which is against the original timeline. When Barret kicks Cloud out of the group in Chapter 3, a single whisper can be seen floating across the screen, starting to observe the possible change in events. We believe that Sephiroth needed Cloud to sleep in to ensure he doesn't go on the mission, doesn't fall into the church, and thus doesn't meet Aerith again, his biggest adversary besides Cloud. However, the uncontrolled whispers still need Cloud to go on the mission, which is why they keep Avalanche busy until Cloud arrives to join them. This creates a huge conflict of interest, which is most likely the reason for this myriad of whispers causing the commotion. But how is Sephiroth even able to control some of the whispers? First, he's trapped by Whisper Harbinger, and might take control from within thanks to his loose connection to Cloud, and thus to the untainted lifestream. Second, with Whispers being around Sector 7 to observe and intervene if Cloud doesn't join the others, Sephiroth might be able to use those as a conduit and puppeteer some of them. Once outside, Cloud and Tifa are surrounded by Whispers, keeping them in place. Only after fighting back and dispatching enough of them, they're able to move forward. It's important to note that one of their attacks is called Impale, Sephiroth's signature move he also uses on President Shinra, Aerith, Cloud in Nibelheim, and Barret in the remake. They even fly up high into the air and drop back down fast to perform the Impale attack, just like Sephiroth does in one of the most iconic scenes in gaming. Although, instead of the move itself, the emerging cascade of sharp, pointy roots cause the damage. Still, the Whispers only physically attack and deal damage when under the influence of Sephiroth, here in Chapter 4 and Chapter 12, but more on that when we get there. Other Whispers wall off certain pathways, forcing us to take a detour, and then fly towards us, creating an annoying headwind, still trying to prevent us from reaching the others, again, completely against their mission. The remaining conflict within the ranks of the Whispers makes sure that, despite the detours and delays, Cloud and Tifa eventually manage to reach the others. But why is there even a conflict in the first place? Can't Sephiroth control all of them? It's possible that he just doesn't have the skills to control them all yet, or he can only control or manipulate those souls harboring enough negative emotions. While unaffected Whispers are still keeping Barret and Jessie at bay, Whispers affected by the hostile takeover initiate another battle against Cloud and Tifa by ripping away the latter from the former, putting her in a bind and keeping her in place with multiple Whispers, one of them being a purple enigmatic specter. This is where it gets interesting. The purple enigmatic specter turns out to be the puppet master and the one we need to defeat for the battle to end. If we don't, it will call upon more and more mysterious specters. However, the enigmatic specter is very resistant against all attack types until we defeat one of the minions, which makes it vulnerable and puts it into a pressured state, the perfect opportunity to stagger it. As its minions, the enigmatic specter, or the demon of nihilism as it's called in Japanese, also performs attacks that can be attributed to Sephiroth. Consume, or black hole in Japanese, summons sucking black holes, pulsing and blinking in and out of existence, similar to Sephiroth's Shadow Flare attack, just less powerful. Flood, or comet in Japanese, riddles the battlefield with countless arrows of negative lifestream, similar to the black strands we see in Advent Children. By now, the parallels between the enigmatic specter and Sephiroth should be more than apparent. as soon as we defeat the purple pest, its hold over many of the other Whisperers subsides, and one of them shoves Jessie down the flight of stairs, causing her to strain her ankle hard and set the stage for Cloud's return. Then, remaining Whisperers surround Cloud, look at him intently, and then finally screw off. We assume they try to tell him to get back on Destiny's track, while also thanking him for freeing them of foreign control. Jessie is now out, which leads Barrett to get Cloud back into the team, ensuring the story proceeds as planned. Though one question remains. Why does Sephiroth pull Tifa away from Cloud and harass her by making several Whispers swirl around her? Maybe to bring more despair to Cloud? Or maybe Sephiroth tries to incapacitate her in some way so she can't go on the mission either, implicitly forcing Cloud to stay behind. After failing to change the flow of events, Sephiroth isn't seen until Chapter 8. However, there are 2 glitchy flashbacks haunting Cloud in Chapter 7. The first one is congruent with the original game, a repressed memory of Tifa kneeling over her dead father in the Nibelheim reactor. It also happens at the same spot, on the bottommost bridge leading to the Mako pump. Why a repressed memory? It's accompanied by a torturing glitch and head pain, unlike Cloud's normal flashback of the Promise in Chapter 4, and is triggered by a similar looking area, just like in the original. While the English version differs from the original, Tifa's lines in the Japanese version are the exact same here. However, the first half of this scene is missing for some reason. Tifa only speaks the last 3 out of her original 6 lines. Could this be the result of memory loss due to the planet nearing its end? Or is Sephiroth's meddling and influence the reason why Cloud doesn't remember his repressed memories as well? In any case, it's interesting that they chose to show a fragment of this exact flashback again right before the battle against Airbuster. Tifa utters the last line from this flashback verbatim in the present, which triggers Cloud's repressed memory again.
I'm sick of this. I'm sick of all of this!
It's just like when I failed you.
In addition to the memory itself, he remembers that he failed Tifa that time. He wasn't able to stop her from entering the reactor and wasn't able to prevent her from getting hurt, thus not honoring his promise. Not that he actually remembers the events before and after that earlier flashback. His scrambled mind still prevents him from seeing the truth, though a fragment seeps through, thanks to this additional trigger. And with that, we conclude this segment of the journey through Cloud's and Sephiroth's mysteries. Thank you so much for watching! If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and select all notifications to be immediately notified when the next part of this analysis releases. Have you noticed anything we didn't? Disagree on some points or have any other feedback for us? Please let us know in the comments, or better yet, check out our Discord server and right away in the Observatory channel. We also release additional content on Twitter, like Viz's infamous CCO gems, so follow us there as well if you're so inclined. Furthermore, huge thanks to all our Patreon and Subscribestar supporters. Your contribution is invaluable. You guys are the best. Stay safe and take care. Kutakuma signing off.